Hey sci-fi fans, and in this installment of Sci-Fi Review I'm going to be talking about the Ray Bradbury Theater. Stay tuned. So the other day I was cruising through TV listings and happened to come across the Comet channel. I mean, if you're a sci-fi fan, you know about the Comet channel, right? It's one of those HD sub-channels that shows up as a dash 2 or 3 or whatever on your regular over-the-air HD TV. They have a real bad habit of cutting commercials in places
Do you want to make more money? Sure, we all do.
where it's totally inappropriate to do so. But I was cruising through Comet and a listing popped up. It said the Ray Bradbury Theater, and I'm like, oh my god, I had totally forgotten about this show. So back in the 80s and late 80s especially, I used to watch Ray Bradbury Theater. I used to have to set the VCR, make sure the cable box was turned to the right channel, set the VCR for Late Night USA to record this thing. And it was Ray Bradbury wrote every single episode of this show. Either they wrote new for this show or they co-opted another one of his short stories from something else and adapted it, and he actually had a huge part in this show. And it was, quite frankly, one of the most awesome sci-fi anthologies, of the time. You had the Twilight Zone remake that kind of floundered and flopped. You had Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories was roughly the same time. I think that was a little bit earlier, but the show always started off, and this was what drew me to the show, was it always started off with Ray Bradbury getting off of this elevator. And I still think to this day that elevator scene, getting off this kind of antique-y looking elevator, I think that was an homage to Blade Runner and the Bradbury Hotel from Blade Runner that kind of sort of looked similar. And I want to say that was like a double-backed, I don't know how you want to say it, it kind of was an homage to the homage. But anyway, that's kind of beside the point. But he'd get off this elevator, walk into his study that was just full of all these things, and it was like, oh, this is where I get my inspiration from. And he'd sit down at his desk with his typewriter, and he'd go, now what am I going to do today? Well, here, let me just show you the thing.
People ask, where do you get your ideas? Well, right here. All of this is my Martian landscape. Somewhere in this room is an African veldt. Just beyond, perhaps, is a small Illinois town where I grew up. And I'm surrounded on every side by my magician's toy shop. I'll never starve here. I just look around, find what I need, and begin. I'm Ray Bradbury, and this is... Well then, right now, what shall it be? Out of all this, what do I choose to make a story? I never know where the next one will take me. And the trip? Exactly one half exhilaration, exactly one half terror.
Yeah, I mean, that was the intro to each episode, and for the first few seasons, he would, I guess, because they had to cheapen out the budget later and said, oh, we can't do individual intros for each show, whatever. For the first few seasons, he would that intro would go, and there'd be a little clip at the end of it where he'd actually talk about what was going to happen in that episode, the inspiration. Sometimes he would actually appear in a weird little clip of the show that was actually happening, like season 1, the one with Jeff Goldblum. I'll get to that part in a second.
Well, where to this time?
Anywhere, everywhere. Hogtown, Ironville, Wooster Falls. Look at all those names. Hard to decide.
So that's where you get all them crazy ideas.
Yes, blind faith. I collect things. Train schedules, signal lights, train tracks, switches. Collect them all up, write them down, and...
Hey, that can't be old 99. What's that coming down the track?
Might be old 99.
It might be a story.
But this show kind of goes under the radar, and it's really too bad because it's really an awesome show. I mean, it is. The first couple seasons especially are dark as I'm sorry, but some of that shit, especially in the first season, I caught it on comment, and it was in season 4, and by that time it was kind of more of the ironic type of stuff, you know, the Twilight Zone-y, yeah, here's what happened, you know, there's a weird twist, you know, at the end type of thing. It lost some of the really dark psychological stuff that went on in those first couple of seasons. Like I said, season 1 especially, the one with Shatner, is like, you watch that and you're like, oh my god, that's some seriously dark crap. And the first 2 seasons were on HBO, so you watch that and you go, okay, I guess they could do that stuff because it was on pay cable instead of, you know, USA, which was part of your standard cable package at the time, and didn't quite have the same amount of stuff on there that HBO did show, whatever, however you want to do it. I don't know. But it was dark stuff. I mean, it was the Twilight Zone and Black Mirror, you know, before Black Mirror. And yeah, I started watching I watched all of season 1 here once I found, well, I'll put the link to it in the notes below, that there's an entire playlist here on YouTube that has every single episode in it. So just start there and just go till you can't do it anymore. Now, I'll warn you, some of the later episodes do get a little bit where you sit there and you go, yeah, I didn't get it. There's one especially in season 4, that was where I started watching in comment before I realized they were all on YouTube, that was called The Day It Rained Forever. And there's these guys in this, it was kind of like a goofy little play. Some of these shows, the production value too went from being pretty good in the first few seasons to being not so great in the last few seasons, and this was one of those examples. Not only was the story just what the hell just happened, but it was a couple of guys. There was 3 guys in this old house, 3 old guys, and it like would rain one day a year, and it didn't rain that day. And then this woman shows up, and they have some little, oh, you made us feel, I don't know, it was really, and then it just started raining, and oh, yeah, it started raining, and that was the end. Did I miss something in that episode? I don't know. I'm going to have to go back. I have not watched all 65 episodes of this yet. Again, I've watched all of season 1. I'm started on season 2, and yeah, I mean, part of the show too that's amazing to me is the star power that they were able to get involved. I mean, you look at the first season, and it's got like Leslie Nielsen, William Shatner, Peter O'Toole, Jeff Goldblum, Drew Barrymore, and you know, you go into the later seasons that might not have the same amount of star power, but you'll be sitting there, you'll going, oh, I recognize this guy, and I recognize this person. You'll be like, Sally Kellerman was in a few, James Whitmore was in one in season 4, does a real great job. And there's just some names that you go, I don't recognize the name, but I recognize that face, and he's a, you know, star from the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, television. I don't know how they got these people involved in the show. Maybe it was the name Ray Bradbury. Now, okay, let's back up. For all you little kids out there, Ray Bradbury was a really great science fiction author from like the 60s, 70s. I don't know if you might recognize some of these names, kids. You know, Martian Chronicles, Something Wicked This Way Comes, Fahrenheit 451. We all had to read that in school. It's still one of the, you know, great sci-fi novels. Great movie. I'll even go so far as to say the HBO remake here a couple years ago wasn't that bad. It kind of took some liberties to modernize it, but still worth a watch. This show really got inside, or showed us the inside of Bradbury's head and some of this, you know, psychological stuff that's going on. And that's how he built the show. And the intro was, it was 1/2 exhilaration and 1/2 terror. And like I said, the early seasons, it was some dark stuff, and you just sit back and go, dang, that was pretty dark. Later seasons, yeah, not so much, but it's still worth a watch as a, you know, sci-fi anthology series. Plus, it's, you know, guys like me, nostalgia-wise, you watch this, it's like a Polaroid of the 1980s. I'm sorry, and, you know, the later seasons into the early 90s. It's just, you watch this and you're like, oh my god, that's wicked. So, I would highly recommend watching this. I'm going to rate this show a 3.3. Now, I'd like to go higher, but the whole thing was shot on video. The production, they didn't have a real great budget to begin with, and you can tell, and it only got worse as it drug on. What they could have done with modern day budget and modern special effects, and would this show even be made now? I don't know. I don't think it has the shock value that people want today. You know, you watch stuff like Westworld, and the great sci-fi shows of our time, and it's like, this kind of seems like kid stuff, to be honest, but that's part of the draw, is that it could be dark and in your head and psychological, and at times introspective and stuff, without having to be violent and graphic nudity and sex and language. You can do all of these things without having to have the shock value. And if you're a real sci-fi fan, you need to be going, yeah, I need to go back and watch this stuff and learn from the master. I mean, it's Ray Bradbury. He's one of the masters. Bradbury, Asimov. Come on, it's Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury Theater 3.3. Follow the link down here. Just take a day, take a week, watch the whole thing, and just go, yeah, it's not that great to look at, but when you think about it and you just go, wow, that's kind of deep and dark, and it's kind of scary. So thanks for watching.